Hello, folks. This is Andrew Gilmore with another episode of Mostly Movies, Maybe Music. And this is kind of a surreal show for me today because I grew up listening to this woman on the radio when I was a kid about 30 years ago. And I listen to her every night. And I guess if any of you watching this are from Philadelphia and you're of a certain age, if you're my age or younger, then you probably did too. And her name is Kathy O'Connell. And Kathy, if you don't know, is the host of a radio show for kids called Kids Corner, which is on WXPN radio. And she's been there since 1988. She's been there almost as long as I've been alive, which is pretty crazy. But it's interesting how these shows come to me sometimes because I was trying to think of people I could book for this show, and I've never met Kathy until just a minute ago, but I knew she was out there because I've seen her pop up on Facebook a little bit. So I knew she was on Facebook, and I started thinking, okay, maybe I could reach out to her, and maybe Kathy would do this show. And I wasn't sure, but I thought I'd take a chance on it. And then the day after I had that thought, she announced her retirement, and the article started coming out about her retirement. So I thought, okay, I guess the universe is trying to tell me something here, and I guess if I'm ever going to have Kathy on the show, this is the time to do it. So I reached out with a little help from our mutual friend Dana B, who I knew in college. So shout out to Dana. They're probably watching this.
Thank you,
And
Dana.
yes, and so with their help, I reached out to Kathy, and she was very gracious about accepting the invitation. And here we are. So this is going to be a nice nostalgic show today. I get to talk to someone who really was a part of my childhood, and it'll be fun. So thank you, Kathy. I'm so glad we could connect this way, and thank you for being on my show. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I love this already. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have you watched any of my other shows?
I have.
You
I
did.
have. That's how I knew that this was going to be video. And then a couple of them, I have to admit, I forgot for a moment that I'm going to be on
Yeah.
your podcast and just got, sucked in because it was really cool because it's movies and music. You know, I'm there.
Yeah. And well, you know from watching my shows that I teach film for a living, so I'm pretty steeped in that stuff. So I guess that's where I can start. Just tell me about some of the movies that had an impact on your life.
Well, the number one movie for me, actually, there's three. My dad came home from work one day. He was a retired cop, and he came home one day. After being a retired cop, he went to the movies most of the time. And he said to my brother and me, I just saw the funniest movie I ever saw in my life. And this was in 1968, and it was The Producers.
Hmm.
And I was one of the early people. Like, I remember going in to see the producers with Barbara Maggio, and we were the only ones in the theater. And for, I would say, many, many years after 1968, I would practically hit people over the head to say, you have to see this movie. You have to see this. I've always been a fan of Mel Brooks, going back to Get Smart and all of that. And just so that was one. Another one was All About Eve
Hmm.
because I am Margot Channing, no matter what I am doing in life. And also because at one point there's a period in my life that is incredibly sad. And back in the 70s, it's over, don't worry. But there's a line in All About Eve where she says, what a story. Everything but the bloodhound snapping at her rear end. And that just resonates with me still. And then my favorite movie in all the world, which is Meet Me in St. Louis,
Hmm.
which I first saw. We would drive to Florida every year from Long Island, where I grew up. And the first time I ever saw Meet Me in St. Louis was on the floor of a motel in Havre de Grace, Maryland, with my grandmother, my brother, and my mother asleep in beds in the motel room. And on a little black and white TV, I saw just the most incredible, wonderful movie I ever saw in my life in black and white. So imagine the wonder when I finally saw it in color.
Yeah.
And I got to jump in too with just one more, and that is, as the kids who listen to Kids Corner know, I just did a show about the greatest movie of all time, which is The Wizard of Oz. And I will
Hmm.
not take any argument about that. I'm very sorry. But I didn't know it turned into color until I was a full-on adult.
Right.
Because black and white television, I'm old, I'm retiring. So, you only saw The Wizard of Oz once a year, and you saw it on black and white TV,
Right.
and it was no less magical. I still thought she shouldn't go back to Kansas, no matter what.
Mm.
I cling to that.
Yeah. Well, those are good choices. So that's nice that you have memories attached to these things.
I was
Yeah.
raised by serious movie lovers.
Yeah. I wanted to recommend something because I know you love musicals. Did you ever see a movie called Love Me Tonight?
Oh, yes. And I'm not big on Marie Chevalier, I have
Hmm.
to say. I inherited that from my mother, she would get fixated on certain actors she just couldn't stand. And he was one of them.
Hmm.
But then I did finally see it because TCM showed it. The
Yeah.
reason that if you only ever have one channel, the cable channel, make it TCM
Yeah.
because it is an incredible resource, incredible gift.
Yeah. I met Alicia Malone recently at a film festival.
Love her.
Yeah.
I absolutely love her. And I love it all. When someone dies, I immediately think, okay, how would I program the salute to them? I have issues because we still haven't had James Arness night, and I can
Hmm.
certainly come up with enough James Arness films to do a few hours at the very least. And they just did something that I believe is going to come out on physical media. Please, I hope. But the series that they did with Carol Burnett showing the movie parodies from her show and then the original movie it was
Right.
based on. They also just did this with Bugs Bunny when he was the star of the month. And you see, I grew up on the parodies, so I didn't know, what movies.
Sure.
With Bugs Bunny, I didn't know really what they were based on. With Carol, I generally knew, but I worship Carol Burnett, so
Yeah.
anything she does, and still is fine with me.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, Love Me Tonight is my favorite movie. I've seen it probably 25 times. So that's
Oh, it is. Is that Lubitsch?
no, that's Mamoulian.
Mamoya, thank you, thank you.
I think Lubitsch was supposed to direct it originally, and then Mamoulian stepped in.
Well,
That's the thing.
it has that kind of frothy but not completely frothy sense
Yes.
that I associate with Lubitsch.
Right.
With me, it's more I am a to be or not to be girl.
Yeah.
That is the movie that I point to
So
in
with
all cases.
so with that and the producers, I'm seeing a theme here.
It was My dad was a career soldier
Hmm.
until the war was over and he got out and did another thing where he was in uniform as a New York City cop. So,
Uh-huh.
runs in the family.
Yeah, and something else that's movie related. I was doing some research and I read that you met one of my heroes. You met Groucho Marx. So I've got to hear that story.
Okay. I met Groucho Marx thanks to one of my heroes, my second dad, my mentor, Soupy Sales,
Right.
who I should get this out of the way right now. My friends and I basically stalked him when we were teenagers. My my teenage years are a combination of the world of Henry Orient and the king of comedy. It is both ends of the spectrum. And when I reunited with Soupy, my first words to him were, "Thank you for never calling the cops on us." So we followed him everywhere. After his New York show went off, he would tell us what shows he was going to be on when. And Soupy was one of several comedians who was going to be on a craft music hall uh,
Hmm.
shooting at 30 Rock. It had to be 1967, maybe winter of 68. And I I was a nun in the Township Theater production of The Sound of Music, where I walked across the stage with Dom DeLuise's niece. That was my credit at the time. The important part is my parents picked me up, drove me into Manhattan, so dropped me off at 30 Rock so I could go see Soupy. This was my life to be in the audience of this show. I got upstairs because it was a lot easier back in the day. Security was very light, got up to, I think it was the eighth floor. And I'm in the hallway kind of looking for a way to come in. And Soupy came out, saw me, and said, Okie, because I had told him to call me Okie for O'Connell.
Hmm.
So he would remember my name. Gave me a big hug, passed me over to an usher because here, please take this 15-year-old child and get her out of the hallway. And he, the usher, here's where Groucho comes in finally. The usher takes me in and there's, the audience is full. And he goes up to Groucho is sitting on the end of the aisle next to a young woman in 1968. I don't know, it was Erin Fleming or who it was at that time, but the usher brought me up to Groucho, and the usher said, "Excuse me, Mr. Marx, I know you're going up on stage soon. Would you mind if this young lady took your seat?" And Groucho looked at me and he looked up and down and said, "Hello, Shorty." And he gave me his seat. And that was my meeting of Groucho Marx. A very long story to get to a very short meeting.
A very shorty meeting.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah, well, the Marx Brothers were everything to me growing up, so that's cool to
Everything.
hear that. And
What's your favorite Marx Brothers movie?
oh gosh, I think if I could just take the five Paramount movies and squeeze them together
Yeah,
into one movie,
yeah,
that's it.
yeah.
I can't
My
pick.
I I grew up when the early show and picture for Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon was the TCM of its time
Hmm.
on regular television, regular broadcast TV. And I just remember the first time I saw Duck Soup. I think whatever anti-authoritarian, part of me exists might have been sparked that day. That may be how I wound up in public radio.
Right. Yeah, for me it was Horse Feathers when I was 9, and that's
Mm. Oh,
I was in
yeah.
school at the time, so I didn't understand college, but I understood school. So,
Yeah, exactly.
and I was in
A
Quaker school, so they were tough. So, seeing these crazy guys breaking the rules, I went, "That's it. I don't have to listen to these people. They're telling me what to do."
Catholic school, yeah,
Yeah.
parallel, yeah, yeah, exactly. Parallel. Oh, wait, there are rules for behavior. Oh, wait, no, there's the Marx Brothers.
Yep. Exactly. So I'm too young to have met Groucho, but now I've met you and I met Frank Ferrante. So
Oh,
just to take in a little bit of that aura is helpful.
Frank Ferrante is the best.
Yeah.
And we met because he played Groucho on one of my radio shows
Oh.
back when I was in New York. I had a national show called Kids America that I fell
Mm.
into. And we had mystery history guests, and Frank played Groucho there, and he played Groucho on Kids Corner as well. He's incredible. Everybody, you've got to see him live on stage.
Yeah, I've only met him briefly a couple of times, but I can tell you a story about that if you don't mind.
Sure.
Yeah, well, I've told this on the show before. I don't know if did you see my interview with Noah Diamond?
Tell me anyway.
Oh, well, anyway, yeah, it was for the second time I saw him. It was a tough week for me because my cousin died, who was 98, and then a few days after that, I had a friend who was 36 and had a heart attack and died. So that was a really rough week. And then I saw Frank's show on the Saturday or something. And when I met him afterwards, I just talked to him and I just told him, I needed this show today. I needed something to make me laugh. And he was very gracious about it. And I just remember sitting on the bench in the lobby with him after the show and just having that moment where, even though he's this performer who travels all over the place, that I could just take that moment to be human with him and thank him. So, Frank, if you're watching this, thank you.
The man has is in the sidewalk in Palm Springs. He is beloved. He
Yeah.
truly is.
Yeah, as I say, I've only met him briefly, but I could see from that he's a good person.
And another reason to support public broadcasting
Yes.
is he has done his Groucho show there.
Yeah.
One of his many Groucho shows,
Right.
I
There's
should
several
point out.
iterations.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Something else I was going to bring up with movies that one of my other favorites is Sullivan's Travels, and I hope you're a Sturgis fan.
I am. I have a feeling now. I have a feeling I'm going to have a whole lot of time on my hands going forward, and I'm going to get deeper. I always I always said about myself, I'm too shallow for Sondheim. And I also think I'm too shallow for Sturgis.
Hmm.
And I'm going to go deeper into Sturgis because that is one of the directors who I need. I'm a comedy girl and
Hmm.
I need, I just need, now you know my plans for my retirement. I'm just going to watch a million movies.
I can send you some recommendations.
Always welcome.
Yeah. Well, if you haven't seen The Miracle of Morgan's Creek, I would definitely recommend that.
Oh, now, okay. Now we're talking. Now we're talking. First of all, forgive me, Pope Benedict, but who I used to refer to as Pope because his name was Ratzinger. And of course, I refer to him as Pope Ratsky Watsky because of miracles. However, now, and I love Miracle of Morgan's Creek. Betty Hutton, to say she's not my favorite is the understatement of the year.
Hmm.
And as far as I'm concerned, my love for Miracle of Morgan's Creek is in spite of the presence of Betty Hutton. That there's always one, like I said, my mother would get fixated on one performer she didn't like. Mine is Betty Hutton. I'm sorry. I'm
Hmm.
sorry. I know she had such a tough life too.
Okay, if I bring you on again, I won't talk about Maurice Chevalier and I won't talk about Betty Hutton. I'll make
Oh, feel
notes.
free. Feel free to, because Maurice Chevalier let Soupy hit him with a pie.
Oh, there you go.
So he's a good guy in my book.
Oh,
Hey,
there
I'm
you
not that
are.
crazy about Jeanette MacDonald either. So Love Me Tonight is another deal where it's the
Hmm.
movie that really works.
Well, Jeanette MacDonald's from Philly, so we should be loyal.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, but I'm from Long Island. I have no
I know.
loyalty whatsoever. I
Yeah,
have
but
now
but we
lived.
adopted you.
That's true, and I'm so glad. I have now lived in Philly longer than I've lived anywhere else on earth.
Yeah,
And yet, you notice New Yorkers are all the same. So I'm like, oh, I'm from New York.
yeah. I have some New Yorkers in my classes, so I know.
You know.
Yeah.
And don't get us started on pizza or bagels,
Okay, I won't.
please.
But you mentioned comedy, and that kind of leads me into something else because, well, I've done some comedy work, and I know that there was a time in your life when you were doing stand up and you did improv and things like that. I used to do improv, so tell me about that.
I never did improv, I have to admit.
Oh, I
I
thought
because
I heard in an interview you took classes or something.
no, I did stand up right after I moved into Manhattan in 1976. I moved to Manhattan because my last living relative had died. And I had started panhandling when immediately I started panhandling tickets to Saturday Night Live. This
Hmm.
is 1976. And I started going to Catch a Rising Star. And this is just when really comedy clubs had started to rise. And I got fascinated by comedy. I worked in stand up for a while, and I got on. I was a regular at the comic strip in its early days, the
Hmm.
comic strip where
I just saw the documentary about the comic strip.
yeah, Eddie Murphy's the one who, like, he really put the comic strip on the map. But at the time, Catch a Rising Star was my place. Richard Belzer was the MC. Paul Schaefer was the music guy, and Pat Benatar
Hmm.
sang, but she wasn't doing rock and roll yet. Years later, when I worked at my first commercial station, it was a rock station, and I didn't know that Pat Benatar was doing rock and roll because my introduction to her was as this kind of cabaret singer doing obscure, Broadway show tune type things. It was
Hmm.
great.
Yeah, so tell me more about doing stand up then.
Just that I used a lot of it to, like I said, I had gotten I was a bitter, bitter lady in
Hmm.
those days. And I used a lot of it in some bitter, bitter comedy that got funny enough to get put on stage a few times. And then, honestly, then I met a boy and fell in love
Hmm.
and gave up comedy.
Who ever heard of comedians being bitter? Everybody knows that they're all really well adjusted people.
Exactly. Exactly. That was, oh, wait a minute. I'm Even I'm so crazy, even comedy wouldn't have me.
There you go. They threw you out.
That was it. Well, back to Groucho. I
Yeah,
wouldn't want to belong to any club that would have me as a member.
right. Well, and you got to see some of the Saturday Night Live tapings, didn't you?
Oh, did I ever? Now, here's the thing. I mean, I'm a normal looking, I'm a normal looking lady. And back then, 50 years ago, I was a normal looking younger lady because I was working as a secretary in New York City. And I found out you probably didn't have a chance of making it into the actual taping, but they had dress rehearsal at 5:30. So I would go to 30 Rock, which I already had experience with thanks to Soupy. We knew that place inside and out,
Uh-huh.
including where all the bathrooms were, because Soupy would come and tape like a full week of some show, some quiz show, and we would hang out and learn where everything was. So I knew the lay of 30 Rock, and I people always seemed to have an extra ticket for the dress rehearsal. So I saw, okay, because I'm going to do an appearance with Dan Reed on his segment Highs in the 70s coming up.
Hmm.
So I had to go back and look at who I actually remember seeing. And I was there when Madeline Kahn hosted.
Oh,
I was there for the dress rehearsal of a show that Lorne never lets be shown, the Louise Lasser show.
I met
Mhm.
her.
Did you real? How
Yeah.
was she?
Well, she's pretty old now, so she seemed a little out
Yeah.
of it, and she wasn't talking very much. But I got her autograph and shook hands, so she was pleasant.
She was, I bet she was more out of it back then when she was doing Saturday Night Live, because there was clearly some kind of altered state going on. But
Yeah,
she has given, I loved Mary Hartman so
yeah.
much, and
I've
she
I've
has
just been
given
watching
so
it for the
much.
first time now.
Oh, now after this, you've got to find Fernwood tonight.
Yeah,
Martin Mull. That's how I discovered Martin Mull.
yep. So, where were we? What else did
I,
you get to see
I
at Saturday Night Live?
Oh, who else did? Oh, wait, I wrote it down as a matter of fact because I was trying to remember musical guests. And honestly, I was remembering hosts more than musical guests. All right, I know. This is fascinating. Listen to me to here we go. Highs in the 70s. I was there May 8th, Madeline Kahn, and it turns out Carly Simon was
Hmm.
the musical guest. I saw Diane Cannon May 15th. Leanna Mary Russell were the musical guest. Buck Henry, May 22nd. Gordon Lightfoot, musical guest. Elliot Gould, at end of May with Leon Redbone, Louise Lasser, July 24th with the Preservation Hall Jazz Band,
Hmm.
Chris Christopherson with Rita Coolidge.
So that's
None of these are from my memory. They are all from going online and looking
uh,
at what hosts I remember. But I saw Lily Tomlin, Karen Black, Steve Martin. Steve
wow.
Martin, I definitely. I am so crazy about Steve Martin.
Yeah,
And Kinky Friedman was the musical guest. So I was really like, oh, I can't believe I didn't remember that one. One odd one I saw was, okay, Jodie Foster, and Jodie Foster herself wasn't odd. I mean, she was doing Taxi Driver, so that was odd enough. But Brian Wilson was her musical guest,
hmm.
and he, Good Vibrations alone on the piano. And I just remember it being sad. I did not appreciate at the time that this is Brian Wilson.
Yeah.
And I just, it just felt very sad to me.
Hmm. Well, aside from the hosts, what do you remember about seeing the cast, seeing the sketches?
Oh, Gilda.
Yeah,
Definitely Gilda.
I love Gilda.
I love Gilda. And I wrote her when she won an Emmy. I wrote her a fan letter thanking her, and she wrote me back.
Oh wow. Do you still have the
And
letter?
I do. It may be with some of my stuff in New York, but I have to track that one down because I loved Gilda so much. And everybody loved Gilda.
Yeah,
Just she was, and um, just that was the original cast. They were just, and the thing is, I still watch Saturday Night Live. I will always watch Saturday Night Live. There were a lot of also sketches that did not work at the time either. I know we
Hmm.
hold it up as the gold standard of that show and of comedy, but there was a lot of stuff that didn't work. But I saw,
Yeah.
but I go back to Bassomatic and all of those.
You reminded me at the same convention that I met Louis Lasser, I met Garrett Morris.
Love him so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, he signed my Saturday Night Live album. So that was, well, actually, it's
What
my mother's album. But
what a voice
yeah,
he had. And there was one show I know for sure where they actually like he sang opera while they
yeah,
ran some crawl about how we thought you should know just how like lovely Garrett Morris's voice was. Like, I love this.
yeah,
I have great memories of Saturday Night Live of that at again low point in my life, but exciting and look wonderful memory of
sure.
getting to do that on Saturdays.
Yeah, my parents watched it every week, so they talk about the original cast all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was I wasn't sure what Garrett Morris was going to be like because my dad is in his 80s and so is he, so I
Uh-huh.
kind of went into it thinking, okay, maybe he's just going to be a crabby old man, and he wasn't at all. He was really cool, very approachable, and seems like a very nice man. I just spent a couple minutes with him, but he was great.
You never know. You never know. One of the only person I met at any of those shows who was just nasty was an actor named Lawrence Tierney.
Hmm.
And he always played a menacing bad guy in movies. So it was like, well, this tracks, doesn't it? But and I did a lot of shows with Soupy toward the end after we reconnected. I would do a lot of shows with him where basically he was having health issues. His to the end, you could mention any jazz tune and he would tell you the bluebird number of the record and what was on the B side. So his mind was working in really terrific ways,
Uh,
but also he was having physical problems. So I would tell his stories and we would basically do I would just I had a better memory for his life than he did at the time. So we
yeah,
had a good act going on at those shows. Just at
yeah,
the tables.
yeah. I hear you. There's a friend of mine who's about to turn 99, and he had a stroke a couple years ago. So
Oh,
yeah, I mean, he's doing okay now, and his body's not what it used to be, but his
that's
mind is
it.
still there. So that's the good
That's
part.
it. There's a wonderful Broadway dancer named Nat Horn, who one of my kindy musicians, my kids' musicians, is a neighbor and dear friend. And this is our history. There's such a wealth of stories and history, and just that they're sharing them with younger people who in turn will pass them on.
Yeah.
So I inherited a bunch of playbills from from Soupy's upstairs neighbor, a guy named Moreland Swing, and several of them featured Nat Horn, including in Jamaica, a Broadway show that featured Lena Horne and Ricardo Montalban.
Hmm.
And I was able to send him playbills that he was in that he hadn't seen for years. And his neighbor sat with him and got stories out of him inspired by the playbills. So again, having physical reminders of things, physical media of some kind, you never know what it's going to spark.
Right. Well, I realized we've been on for half an hour and I haven't even gotten to radio yet,
Oh,
so
goodness.
that's the main thing here. So, you mentioned that you went to a lot of the Friends of Old Time Radio conventions,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that resonates with me because I grew up listening to the old '40s radio shows. So, tell me about the conventions.
Well, I started in radio at WBAI
Hmm.
in New York, and uh, Max Schmid, who still does the golden age of radio on WBAI, was a dear friend. And he's the one who introduced me to the Friends of Old Time Radio convention, which was in Bridgeport, Connecticut at first. So I got to see P.T. Barnum's house
Hmm.
in Bridgeport, Connecticut, a couple of years. But then it moved to Newark, New Jersey. And I I didn't go for several years. And then when I reconnected with Soupy, I started going again to be with Soupy and help him at the table with his, help him and his wife and, kind of be part of that, which was incredibly cool. That's how I met John Provost from Lassie and, Lois Lane. I can't remember her name.
Not Phyllis Coates, was that it?
No, the other one, the other Lois Lane. The
I
my,
can't remember either.
I'm not 99 and my mind is going. So, bless anybody who can remember anything. That was one of the things too. Um, my parents both died in their 50s, so
Mm,
I had never really been around old family and Soupy was having the gift of being with Soupy toward the end, the last 6, 7, 8 years of his life was an incredible gift because I got to go to the Friends of Old Time Radio convention, but also having the gift of the stories, being able to sit and this was very much this embodied what the old time radio convention was about because these men and women who radio before TV, these were stars. These were, and more importantly, performers who maybe had not performed in their medium for years and years.
yeah,
And at the Friends of Old Time Radio convention, they did recreations
right,
of radio shows and there were panels and merch. Oh my goodness. The merch tables because collectors, non-commercial collectors were how this hobby stayed alive, where people pass it's like the great anybody who knows anything about deadheads, passing the tapes around. And that's how so much of these shows stayed alive,
right.
and are still able, and now a lot of them are online. People have shared their collections
Yeah,
online.
I listen to old radio shows every night as I'm falling asleep. I've been doing that for years.
What do you like? What do you listen to?
Mostly the comedy shows, Fibber McGee and Molly and Jack Benny, Fred Allen, all that
Nice.
stuff.
Oh, Fred Allen. I love Fred Allen.
Yes.
Have you ever seen It's in the Bag?
Oh, yes.
Okay, good. I kind of figured as much. But see, one of I finally, like I said, I had the great gift of being with Soupy for so much toward the end of his life. And he had never seen the movie A Face in the Crowd. And I said, "What do you mean? How could you not have seen A Face in the Crowd? It's about old television." And he said, "I was too busy making old television." But there was just there radio is the most intimate medium.
Yeah,
And everybody hears and processes it in a different way. And Soupy would do references on his New York TV show. He would mention things like Merton Marge.
right.
Well, I knew who Merton Marge was when I was 13 years old because I looked it up in one of my dad's radio books because Soupy had mentioned it, and sure enough, at the Friends of Old Time Radio convention, there was some guy selling cassettes of Merton Marge. I mean,
Right.
my thing is now and always has been Gunsmoke.
Hmm.
It's the TV Gunsmoke for me, but that's where Gunsmoke started, was on radio. And the
Right.
first scripts, the half-hour scripts written by John Meston for the TV show are basically just the radio scripts.
Yeah.
They're basically the same thing. It's incredible. But it was a wonderful. It I don't go to a whole lot of fan conventions. Now I'm going to have more time, so I just might.
Right.
I used to go to Cinecon and well, I want to go to more movie conventions, but this was just a wonderful celebration of a time that had passed but still felt very present.
Yeah. And
And I mean, Les Paul had a radio show,
mm,
and just and Soupy wound up at the end of his career having a show on WNBC for a few years. So
uh,
it all gets back to radio. But I started volunteering at WBAI when 3 Mile Island happened
mm,
because a friend of mine from the Soupy days, a cartoonist, um, he was he was going to go protest about something. And he said one of the things that he talked about volunteering at WBAI. So I came in to answer phones and got hooked on radio.
right.
That's basically my story.
I was going to say, speaking of movie conventions, have you heard of Capital Fest in New York?
Syracuse
It's in
is
Rome.
in Rome.
Yeah.
Okay. I know I went to some movie convention many years ago in Syracuse, but now how is Capital Fest? At what time of year?
That's in August every year, and I've been
Ooh.
going there for 10 years, and they show things that nobody's ever heard of, and it's just fascinating. So I would definitely recommend using some of your retirement time to go there.
Yes. Oh, I like that idea. I do like that idea very much. I'm going to hang on. I'll remember Capital Fest. I like that.
Yeah, and it's the reason it's called Capitol Fest is because it's at the Capitol Theater, which is one of those big old movie palaces from the 20s.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's
I love that. That's what I liked about Cinecon was you're right there in Hollywood and you're oh, what was the theater? Was it the Egyptian? They were showing like I got to see Mary Poppins in this beautiful old LA theater because it was Cinecon. It was, an incredible thing. And Cinecon is how I fell in love with movies of Jesse Matthews.
mm-hmm.
Just this total bright light in movies that I just want the world to know about. That's who I'm waiting for them to do an evening of on TCM.
Yeah,
Please let me become more famous just so I can get a night programming TCM.
yeah. Well, let's see. How are we doing on time here? I think we should jump ahead to Kids Corner because I do have some questions there.
Sure.
Oh, well, I was just actually speaking of. I'm just looking at my notes here, but just talking about radio. What were the radio shows that you listened to growing up? What was your Kids
Oh,
Corner?
rock and roll radio was my thing, and WABC. I was a WABC girl. Dan Ingram, the greatest disc jockey who there ever was. I grew up on Cousin Brucey and Scott Muni, and there was a real rivalry among New York radio stations, among kids for what like we had WINS kids who were fans of Murray the K, and there were WMCA kids, but we were WABC kids. And the thing was, especially British Invasion,
Yeah.
a song, the song we did it most with was I'm Telling You Now by Freddie and the Dreamers, which
Mm-hmm.
we had all first seen on Hullabaloo. And then we started a phone tree with kids who listened to the other stations. So we were all switching back and forth so we could hear I'm Telling You Now. But that was my yeah, I did not discover old time. My dad listened to like talk radio like Ed and Pegeen Fitzgerald and Bob Grant and that kind of stuff in the 60s,
Yeah.
and which just annoyed me no end, ironically, since I wound up going into talk
Right.
radio. and beware of what you complain about. Um,
It's like
or
Mel Brooks said, we mock the thing we are to be.
That's it. Or as I used to say to Soupy all the time, because the thing with Soupy is he knew me when I was a goofy 13-year-old. And he also
There's
knew
another kind
me.
of 13-year-old?
Thank you. He also knew me when I'm a two-time Peabody Award winning broadcast. And I got to see proud dad eyes through him and the look of, I built that
Yeah,
basically. That it was just such an incredible gift. I'm sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent
that's
again.
okay. Well, you did get to one of my other questions. I wanted to ask you about the Peabody Awards. I mean, what's it like waking up in the morning and getting that phone call?
Well, let me just tell you what they're from. Two different shows. One was for Small Things Considered on WNYC, which is how I fell into kids radio because the people who originally created the show on WNYC, a call-in radio show for kids, um, I was working as a broadcast engineer at WNYC at the time, but I was
Right,
also volunteering at BAI as an on-air person. And the people who did Small Things Considered got mad about an hour before the show was supposed to go live, and they came into the studio that I was in babysitting. I think it was All Things Considered tape, and they started pulling records. And basically, they walked off an hour before they were supposed to do the show. And management came in and said to me, "We need you to help us out." Because I knew what buttons to push to keep us on the air. At the time, it was a very not high end studio setup. And halfway through it, I mean, I hosted, I said, "You let me talk, I'll do whatever you want." So I hosted it along with the then program director, Larry Orfali, and we co-hosted, took over Small Things Considered, and then like the next year, all of a sudden we hear, "Oh, by the way, we're submitting for a Peabody Award." And the next thing is, "Oh, by the way, you won a Peabody Award."
wow,
But so that was one where I was part of a big operation because we had a healthy budget and staff and producers, and they definitely had made I was still board opping and hosting at the same time. It was, which I don't think I could do now. And it was just very cool. It's a very nice. I love hardware. That's my advice to everybody is get the hardware. And I like awards. And it's a very nice dinner. It's a very nice event or a luncheon, I should say. Um, the second one I got, the second Peabody Award, is the one where I could say, "I built that," because that was for Kids Corner. And Kids Corner basically is me. And then the next day the show was on the air, Robert Drake
right.
joined. So it's basically been the two of us. So that was, they're both thrilling. And I will hit people over the head with them, metaphorically speaking, if I need to sometimes. Oh, there was some news guy, some snotty news guy whose name I don't remember,
Ted
but
Baxter.
that's the type, though. That's exactly the type. And it was like it was Kids Corner, and he was doing a piece about the death of Jerry Garcia, which fodder for a kid show. And he was just like that. People get very snotty about kids' entertainment. People sneer or they roll their eyes about kids' entertainment. And I'm usually kind of nice until I'm not nice. And finally, I just said to because he was like, "Oh, this is what you do." And I said, "I got two Peabody Awards for what I do. What do you have?"
Right.
you know? It's like it's, kids are like our most important investment because it is that's who's going to take care of us at our old age. I've got kids who have been charged with taking care of me the way I took care of Soupy if
Yeah,
necessary. But
right.
and so little respect or care is put into, what we put out there for them much
Yeah,
too often.
yeah. Well,
But
I'm kind of jumping around here. I'm trying to think of where
welcome
else I
to
can
my
go.
life.
Well, I have my notes, but then we go off on tangents and I get disordered. But you're used to that, I guess. But
Very.
oh, I did want to jump back a little bit to when you started going on the air with Small Things Considered. Where you don't seem like the kind of person who would be nervous on the air, but the first couple of times were you nervous at all?
Not really, because I had just come back from California where I was on, I worked in commercial radio, worked in a couple of different stations. And I was volunteering on BAI, and I'm very natural on a microphone.
I know.
It was like, in a pinch, just turn on the mic. That's like the one rule that we've had on Kids America, on Kids Corner, on everything I've ever done. If something's not working in the control room, turn on Kathy's mic. Like no
Yeah,
matter what. Worst case scenario, I'll tell you about when I saw the Beatles. So,
right.
I'll talk about my grandmother, something. And it was no, maybe because I have always been a performer. I was the kid who,
Yeah,
put on shows in the backyard, and I lip synced. Is that a word? Past it, but in front of a mirror to all my show tunes and to Carol Burnett.
right,
I won a talent show at 8 years old, lip syncing to Adelaide's Carol Burnett's recording of Adelaide's Lament.
right.
And, so when you're used to the solitary performance existence like that, the microphone is just another aspect of it.
Yeah. Well, I think I mean I've done some performing, but I think you're more natural at it than I am. I had to work harder to learn how to do things.
Talk to
But
myself a lot. This is, I used to share room with my grandmother and I've talked in my sleep. My mother would stand at the back door watching me walk home from the bus stop, talking to myself. So I just think there's a radio show always going on in my head. But yet I don't hear voices. It's
well, that's
like,
good.
yes, I should make
I was
this
worried
clear.
about you, Kathy.
Oh yeah, I know. Oh God, yes. No, not yet at least.
Hmm. Well, can I just sidestep here and tell you a
Of
story?
course.
Well, I did 3 years of college radio, which is how I know Dana. And I guess the reason I asked that question is because I was thinking the first time I went on, because I was 19 and I'd done things fooling around with a tape recorder before, but not, I hadn't really been on the air. But I just remember that first week I was really nervous and shaking, and I could just barely get through the show. And then the second week I remember was my Halloween show, so I had a Halloween playlist. And I took a second and I thought, wait a minute, it's radio. They don't know me, they can't see me. I can be whoever I
Right.
want. So it was the Halloween show, so I went on as Alfred Hitchcock.
Love it.
And I did 2 hours as Alfred Hitchcock. And then I came back the third week and I was fine, so that broke my mic fright. So that's my college radio story.
My Halloween show that I ran on Kids Court of my Halloween show.
I remember.
Now, that's my Deanna Troy voice.
Oh,
That's my all-time least favorite Star Trek character. Just Deanna. I don't know why I hated that poor character. I apologize wherever you are, Deanna Troy. But I used that accent for my Halloween extravaganza.
yeah, I remember those Halloween shows. Those were fun.
Oh, I love those. I love those. What am I gonna do?
Sit in your room and talk to yourself. That'll work.
That's exactly it. And I have a dog.
Oh, talk to the dog, yeah.
Yeah, well, definitely that.
Just as long as the dog doesn't talk back, then you're in trouble.
Oh, I make up conversations that she's having. At
Hmm.
least I don't hear her talking to me. I say what she's saying. So I figured that's at least some clinging to health, some clinging to sanity so far. When it's more than one dog, that's when we worry.
Yeah. So anyway, that's how I overcame my mic fright, and I haven't worked in radio professionally, but I've done a number of things as an amateur, and that's how I got through it. So here's my story for you.
Very cool. Excellent.
Yeah. Just jumping around again, I was going to ask you if WXPN has archives of the shows that you've done. I was wondering if, for example, if I wanted to hear the shows you did when I was a kid, did they have them?
We are well, we have the we have them want to come over. I have a lot. We have quite a few of them that I'm going to be we're going to be running during the course of my last month, which is June.
Right.
We're going to do a countdown of the top 50 Kids Corner songs during May,
Right.
which will include our last call in. Last call in shows where I'm going to ask kids to tell me, what should I do with my time? What am I going to, what would you do if you have all the time in the world?
Go to Capital Fest in August. That's it.
That's definitely on the list. Well, I what let me say this is not a complaint because if it were a complaint, then definitely I would worry about me. But my plan, my first thing I was going to do was I was going to Arkansas in September because my friends from the band Trout Fishing in America are
Yeah.
getting it. It's a gala that they're having, like a long dress wearing gala, and they wanted me to be there. And I've all planned. I'm going to go, and the Children's Music Network, which is a lovely organization of people affiliated with kids music. They're meeting in Philadelphia in September, but I won't have a job on Kids Corner, so I wouldn't have to go. I'm going to Arkansas, and the other night, a bunch of the musicians from Children's Music Network called me live on the air.
I heard.
Yeah, I know, and I was like, and I was texting the band while the songs were on. I was like, what? And both Keith and Ezra texted back and said, get the hardware. They've known me long enough that you take the award. You take the thing that is your job and is on about your work. I'm going
Yeah.
to quote Leslie Knope because I love Parks and Recreation, but it sometimes it's about the work.
Yeah.
And I love what I do.
I can tell that.
It's a great job. It really is. And nobody gets a 40-year job. That and,
No.
and and my career is even longer. It's incredible,
Yeah. I'm going on 17 years as a teacher. I don't know how I did that, but
right? I I I don't either because teachers, parents, people who like I get to be on the radio and kids listen, but they're far away. You are there in the room with them, teaching and actually sharing something. You know, it's not just you being goofy,
right.
so teachers and parents, but I'm a wonderful aunt. I really am
Yes.
because I can give the kid back.
I can imagine. Well, I'll jump around again. I wanted to ask you who wrote the theme music for Kids Corner? Where did that come from?
It came from a dear friend named Arthur Greenwald, who was a television executive in Pittsburgh. He was KDKA or Metro Media at the time, and he was a fan of Kids America. And he had a friends of his at a jingle house write me a theme song when I said I was moving when Kids America went off and I announced I'm moving to Philadelphia because I literally got the call the same day with the job offer to try to do this in Philadelphia the same day as we got the notice that that's it for Kids America. And he yeah, got a jingle house to create a package for me. And Vinnie Curran, who was God, what was this time? He was the program director when I first came here to WXPN. He recut the pieces to fit into the format of Kids Corner. So we would have like the bumper music, and that just really formalized where in the show it is. And it's the same, it's been the same theme song all the time.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I reached a point where I grew out of Kids Corner and I stopped listening. But in my adult life, every now and then I tune in, and anytime I hear that music and I hear your voice come on again, it just makes me happy. It brings back
Oh,
memories.
good. Oh, I'm so glad. That's it. Like it's a great life, and I have had a great time. And I said, I'll give Philly a year. I'm sure I'll give Philly a year.
Right? I said I'll give teaching a year.
Yeah, exactly. And what I was going to be was a teacher.
Oh, there you go.
That was my intention.
Well, you are.
Of it's true. That's what one of my kids, America kids, is a teacher. And that's what she has been saying to me all along. I have Kids Corner kids, I have Kids America kids. It's like, this is great.
Yeah,
I'm just really lucky
yeah.
and happy.
And I also wanted to ask you about the idea of it being a call-in show. I mean, that was something that makes it unique. How did that idea come about?
Well, that was the unfortunately, that was the two people who walked off. Small Things Considered was that a call-in show, because the show I got hired for was Senior Edition, which was a call-in show for old people, and I was the board operator. And Larry Miller and Barbara Rosen were the original hosts of Small Things Considered, and which was, I think, a 3 hour daily call-in show, and it had like different segments. And you would think I would know more of this because one of the things I had to do was put together the rerun on Saturdays. But that was really, Larry Miller's idea. But I was already doing call-in shows on WBAI,
Uh,
much more antagonistic than any kids call in. And just it just it's a conversation. It just seemed natural.
yeah,
And each segment, each contributor really grew out of a maybe a one-time or two-time guest appearance, and they just fit into how cool it was to be part of this. That there are just some very stressful jobs and experiences and radio shows even, and Kids Corner was never that. Even live every night, it was like, hey, if things go wrong, turn on my microphone. If a
yeah.
mouse shows up in the studio, you know we'll charge a vermin tax or something.
Well, if it was Mickey, then it would be appropriate.
Exactly. Or we'd have, yeah, but then we'd have to pay Disney, but
Oh,
that's okay
that's
too.
true. Well, no,
That's all right.
he's public domain now.
Oh, that's right. Oh my goodness, that's right. And you know what changed things? I have to say, too, a big turning point was how the Disney company, reintroduced traditional musical comedy structure to whole new generations.
Hmm.
So you look at The Little Mermaid, or you look especially at Beauty and the Beast, and big opening number, a comedy number, like it's traditional musical theater. And I got to work off that.
Yeah,
That was part of what I got to share.
yeah. Well, I have a couple more things, and then I'll let you
Sure.
go. I guess I'll have to get a little more serious here, but I know that I was doing research and I've read about some of the shows that you've done about more serious issues. You did a show about depression, and you've done shows about domestic violence and things like that. I was just curious because obviously there are boundaries involved when you're doing a kid show, but was there any resistance to handling serious subjects like that, or did
Now,
everyone feel that it was important enough that you should do it?
I have gotten very few complaints. over the years about subject matter. I make the joke that if I don't get called a communist once a year, then, it just doesn't feel right. I don't know. But occasionally, once in a great while, I've gotten a complaint. I'm trying to think. I once called slave owners the scum that scum scrapes off its shoes.
Wow.
And a dad called me and said, some of our, great founding fathers, and it's true, but yet they were slave owners. They can make all the musicals in the world, but a lot of them, slavery wrong, no
Right.
matter what. And the I just recorded a show with Nurse Dr. Mimi Mann, who was our healthcare person for many years. And we did the 9/11 show with her. We did the series, on domestic violence and AIDS. And we went back and really looked at what we've talked about over the years. And in 1988, it was AIDS and HIV and a lot of misinformation that was out there. And we never got pushback from XPN.
That's
We
good.
never got pushback from the station, and very little pushback elsewhere. Now, also, it's public radio. Who knows who's listening? We also, didn't have the biggest listenership on the face of the earth, but that also gave us a freedom. And one of the most important things I think we did was on 9/11 when Mimi Mann, you know, sat there and said, look, I cannot honestly tell you everything's going to be all right, but I can tell you that grown-ups are going to try their best to do whatever we can to make it better and make you feel safe. And
Right.
that really is all you can say to when kids are in crisis, and try to do what you can,
Yeah.
what little you can, really.
Yeah. So I guess there's no reason why there would be much pushback because you're handling the subject matter intelligently and
I've
with
been
your.
very lucky. I have been very lucky to have people like Mimi Mann, like Mary Eisman, the psychotherapist we had on the show for years, for environmental issues, Mike Weilbacher. There's um, the regular crew of people that we had on the show who will be looking back during the month of June and kind of revisiting all of them, and like our librarian Joe Hilton, who every year did Banned Books Week. He celebrated Banned Books Week by recommending nothing but banned books. But when you say, like, that's books like The Wizard of Oz, that's books that are
Mm.
banned for stupid reasons. And just that there's when you give kids real information, not where they've got to make a choice, but just factual information, age appropriate factual information. That's all you can do. That's
Yeah.
as much as you can hope for.
Yeah. I guess I'm thinking about some of the conversations I had with my parents when I was a kid, and we had conversations about death when I was 8. So I guess kids can handle things like that
I
sometimes.
wish we had. I really do. Looking back at my life, boy, we never talked about anything in my family. Maybe this is why I'm good at this,
Yeah.
but we really didn't talk about the things that I know families talk about now.
Mm. Anyway, I guess I brought the whole tone of my show down here. I kind of messed things up a little bit, but
Okay, just think about. I just saw the scene I love in Moonstruck where the grandpa goes, "Somebody tell a joke."
yes, yes. Well, yeah, I guess one more thing, and then I'll let you
Yeah.
go. But
Oh, you
just
can have me back anytime. Just let me say this right there.
oh well, thank you for that. I would be very happy to have you back. Maybe we can just do more movie stuff next time or
Oh,
something.
yes. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be very happy to keep in touch and have you back.
Absolutely. Hey, you could hear me rant about Summer Under the Stars, depending on who they who they give days to
Yeah,
in August on TCM.
as long as it's not Betty Hutton, I guess.
Oh, but even so, it's just a day. That's, even so.
Well, you made me
But
think.
I'm gonna give Love Me Tonight another look. I am gonna give it another look.
Well, good. You should do that. And
So,
yeah, I was going to say I actually had my first guest on here was a friend of mine whose name is Samantha Glasser, and she's a big Betty Hutton fan. So we get both sides of the spectrum on my show. So there you
e-
go.
exactly. And with me, it's visceral. It's nothing against the lady. For real. It's just honestly, did you ever see um Jim Carrey in The Man in the Moon, the movie where he plays Andy Kaufman?
It's funny because I've actually never seen it, but I was going to watch the Andy Kaufman documentary tonight.
Oh, my friend Bob Pagani is in that.
Oh,
Keep your
okay.
eyes open for him. But he plays Andy with his eyes way open, and he reminds me of Betty Hutton. I watched that whole thing and I was like, it's Betty Hutton and it's driving me crazy. So
Anyway, if I
that
can
poor
steer the ship
lady.
here,
Please,
if I can get back
please.
to doing my job, Kathy,
I'm sorry.
you're the one who's a professional. You should know
You
better than to
you would
derail
think
my show.
you would think, wouldn't
Uh,
you?
Anyway, yeah, just to wrap up, I was going to say that obviously you've dealt with kids for so many years. Do you think kids have changed much? Has the behavior of kids changed, or do you think kids have always been kids?
I think kids are still basically kids. I think a lot of the I think the basics of there's things that scare you. There's things that you don't understand. There's that you
There are still
have
things I don't understand.
exactly that you have no power, and that I think we're much more realistic with kids than we used to be, and we're more open. But the basics of what kids deal with are the same, but there's different stimulus leading to it. There's a whole lot more, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't subscribe to, screens are bad because I'm a television kid, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess that's a good note to end on, and I'll just tell you, as I think I said at the beginning, I wasn't sure how this was going to go, and I was a little nervous, but this was so much fun, and I think this is
Thank
probably the best
you.
show I've ever done, and as I said, I grew up with you, and I think the same way that people of your generation remember Soupy, I think a lot of kids of my generation will always remember Kids Corner and Kathy O'Connell. So I thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this.
Oh, Andrew, thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Take care. And again, have me back anytime.
I absolutely will. I appreciate that offer.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.
Bye bye.